Hello everybody. Today I'm really excited to talk about some of the major updates that we made in Q3 for the WorkOS platform. My name is Zeno Rocha. I'm a VP of Developer Experience at WorkOS, and we're live. So if you have any questions during this talk, please just drop them in the chat. We have a few team members who are ready to answer anything for you. Okay, let's get started. So for today's agenda, we're going to focus in two things. The first one being the new Audit Logs feature that you can use to augment your application and make sure you have a trail of every single action that was made by every single user in your app. We're going to talk about why this is important and how you can use this API today. And the second thing is the new documentation. We recently shipped a complete revamp of our docs, and we've learned so many things along the way. We wanted to share those lessons with you so you can also apply them to your own products. And to get started, I'll hand it over to Patrick, who will talk more about Audit Logs.
Hi, I'm Patrick Marcille, a product designer here at WorkOS. Today, I'm really excited to talk to you about our latest feature, Audit Logs. Some of you may have heard the term Audit Logs or Audit Trail before. Maybe you've even used some apps with this feature built in already. But what are Audit Logs? Unlike other types of logs, Audit Logs aren't used for troubleshooting errors or recording build output or identifying potential bugs in an application. Audit Logs record actors taking various actions on different resources in an app. That data is then used by IT teams for security and compliance. And this ensures that the right people have access to the right things and that any changes to sensitive resources in an app can be closely monitored. Let's look at some real-world examples. If you've used tools like GitHub or PlanetScale before, maybe you've seen the audit log in your organization account. Looking at both of these, you'll see that there are some similarities. Both products show a list of events, and each event has a user or an actor associated with it. Each event also has an action that the actor took, additional metadata like a timestamp or the user's IP address, or maybe it even shows the user's location. Audit logs aren't just for developer tools though. Any app that's adopted by enterprises that requires a certain level of IT compliance will need an audit logging solution. Here you can see both Slack and Microsoft 365 have built audit logs into their products. So whether it's a productivity tool or a developer tool, the audit log requirement by enterprise customers remains the same. To solve this problem, WorkOS is introducing two new concepts. The first is Audit Logs, which is a set of APIs for ingesting events and exporting events to CSV files. It's also a set of UIs. In the WorkOS dashboard, app developers can get access to audit log information, and in the admin portal, their enterprise customer can also get access to their specific audit log. We're also introducing a new concept called log streams, and log streams is a discrete API specifically for streaming audit log event data to a third-party service like Splunk or Datadog. And audit logs and log streams can be used together or separately. And here's how it works. Let's imagine there are two applications. The first needs end-to-end audit logs. The second has already built their own audit log solution and just needs the ability to stream their audit log events to a third-party service. App 1 would send their audit log event to the WorkOS Audit Log API. It would then get recorded in the WorkOS Log Store, which is a special database for storing audit log events. Those events would then be made available to the app developer in the WorkOS dashboard and their enterprise customer in the WorkOS admin portal. App 2 would send their existing audit log events to the Logstream API. That event data would then be normalized and made available to various third-party services that enterprises are already using to manage their logs. If App 1 also wants to connect their audit log events to a stream and stream them to a third-party service, they can also use the Logstream API to do this. Let's look at what an audit log event actually is, though. An event is comprised of an ID and a timestamp. Additionally, there are objects for the action, which is the actual thing that happened. A user logged in, a resource was edited, something may have been deleted. That's the action. The actor who triggered the event. The target, which could be one or many things associated with the event. This could be a user, a team, a set of users, and context. Context contains additional information about the actor's IP address and their user agent. In this example, you can see that there is an action defined, team.admin created. There's an actor defined, and there are 3 targets, 2 users and 1 team. Additionally, we've recorded the actor's IP address and their user agent in the context object. But what if you wanted to record additional metadata that isn't described here? With WorkOS audit logs, you can add custom metadata in the form of key value pairs to the top level event object, the actor object, and any targets you have defined. With the targets and actor strongly typed, we will ensure that any data that you send gets type checked and validated before it is stored in the log store. And here's how we do that. First, we define an event's action and targets. And this is how we make sure that you're sending the right target types per event. So if a user is joining a team, we make sure that you send user data and team data. Additionally, if you have any custom metadata, you can use our JSON schema editor to ensure that it's type checked and valid. So if you wanted to add a username, for example, on a actor object, we'll make sure that that username is stored as a string. And we really feel that strongly typed data for all events ensures that the audit log contains higher quality data in general. Once you're sending events and they're validated, you'll see them show up in an organization's audit log page in the WorkOS dashboard. From here, you can filter by actor, by action, by target type, or by date range. This data can also be exported to a CSV file. You can also drill down into a single event and view the entire event object. And we've parsed out the most important parts of the metadata so that you have the critical parts of an event at your fingertips. Now I'll hand it over to my colleague Rob Frampton for a demo of how to integrate audit logs into a real app.
Hi, this is Rob. I'm an engineer at WorkOS. I'm going to walk us through how to integrate our new Audit Logs API. We'll be using a demo application called HireOS as an example. First, I'd like to cover the anatomy of an audit log event. Each event contains information relevant to notable actions taken by users in your application. They consist of an action, which describes what happened, a timestamp of when the action occurred, an actor, which represents the person or entity that triggered the action, targets, which consist of any resources that were affected by the action, contextual information such as the location and user agent of the actor, and finally, any additional metadata you see fit. Before we send any audit log events, we need to decide which actions we wish to track. We want to track anytime a user signs in to our application. But what other actions should we track? Here we have a list of candidates with a button that allows us to view details. Given the sensitivity of this personal information, we'll want to track every time a user within our application views this information. We can also delete users, which we'll also want to track. Before we can start making API calls, we'll need to configure these events in the WorkOS dashboard, which I'll do now. We must define the allowed actions, as well as what target resources should be present for those actions. This will prevent us from accidentally omitting important information for these events. I'll start by defining the user signed in event. For target types, we'll use team. We'll also want to create an event for when a user views candidate details. And for target type, we'll use candidate. And then finally, we'll create another event for when a candidate is deleted. And again, for target type, we will use candidate. Now that we've finished the configuration, we can emit these events from our application. Here we have an example of sending an event using the WorkOS Node SDK. It should be noted that all of our SDKs have audit log support. Each event requires an organization ID for the customer that originated the event, as well as the action and targets that were defined earlier. We can go through our example app's sign-in flow to emit this event. Now that we've emitted the user signed-in event, we can navigate back to the WorkOS dashboard, click on the organization that owns this event, and we can view the event that we just emitted from our example application. Let's go ahead and trigger the additional events that we previously configured as well. Going back to our demo application, I'm going to click details on some of these candidates. I'm also going to go ahead and delete a few of them as well. Now if we navigate back to the WorkOS dashboard, we can see the events that we just emitted from our demo application. Now that we successfully emitted a handful of events, I'm going to demonstrate how we can add custom JSON schema for the metadata we want to add to our events. When navigating back to our Audit Logs configuration page, I'll choose to edit one of our events. Here I'm presented with our JSON schema editor, where we can add custom JSON schema for our metadata objects. I'm going to scroll down, and here I'm going to add some custom JSON schema for the actor metadata. Now we're required to pass a role field. That's supposed to be a string, and it has to be either admin or member. I'm going to scroll to the top. I'm going to click Save as New Version. Now you can see we have a new version of this event. In order to actually leverage this event, when we're emitting the event using the Node SDK, we'll have to specify which version we are using. And we'll have to add the new metadata that is required for this version. Now that we have audit log events being ingested, we can share these events with our HireOS customers, leveraging the WorkOS admin portal. When I navigate to the settings page in our demo application, we have a link which should redirect us to the WorkOS admin portal so that we can view audit log events for this organization. Under the hood, this link is going to use the WorkOS API to generate an admin portal link and redirect us. Now we can view the audit log events for this organization within the WorkOS admin portal. We can filter by a variety of fields, and we can create CSV exports. It should be noted that the CSV export feature is also available through the WorkOS API, so the export flow can be embedded into your own application if desired. In this demo, we've covered how to configure audit logs in the WorkOS dashboard, integrate audit logs into our application using the WorkOS API, and finally, how to share audit log events with your customers through the WorkOS admin portal. Please visit the WorkOS docs to see our integration guide and API reference for our new Audit Logs API.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Patrick. And that's Audit Logs. If you want to learn more about this new feature, you can go to workos.com/auditlogs. And you can also check the new integration guide where you can learn things such as how to create a metadata schema and how to validate it. So in a nutshell, Audit Logs is this new API that you can export and ingest audit log events. And this is all available today. There's a free tier where you can use to ingest up to 10,000 events per month. And we keep these events available for you to download and export in a 30-day retention window. Cool. Now let's talk about the new docs. So for us at WorkOS, we truly believe that documentation is not auxiliary or secondary to the product. For us, documentation is the product. So when we looked at our existing docs and we noticed that there were so many things that we could improve, we started to look at the entire journey as you're integrating. And we started to put together a framework into how we would be able to make the lives of folks who are integrating with WorkOS much easier. So that's the whole initiative and the whole goal around this project. So we mapped 8 different experiences that we wanted to improve, starting with the SDK experience. So our initial hypothesis is that developers are no longer consuming the REST APIs directly with any developer tools, really. That what we are seeing is that instead they are consuming the SDKs. And with that in mind, we wanted to approach this new documentation with an SDK first mentality and not an API first mentality. And there were so many things that we uncovered as we started to dive into that. We wanted to treat SDKs as a first-class citizen in this new documentation. So that's why we wanted to have a dedicated page, a change log, and so many different things. So let's take a look and see how that works in practice. So now when you go to workos.com/docs, you have many different pages, including the new SDKs page. And here we can look at all the different SDKs that are available and also the experimental ones, not only the official ones that we maintain, but also the experimental ones. Here we can take a look and see that we have the latest version number, the latest dates that was released for that SDK. You can see more information like the number of stars, number of forks, contributors, and not only that, you can have different instructions based on, in this case, the different package managers that you can install, the Node.js SDK. And you can keep scrolling and seeing the entire release notes and all the things that change in every single version of this SDK. So this was our way of like surfacing that data that maybe already existed in places like GitHub, but was not really visible for people who are integrating with the WorkOS SDK. The second thing that we wanted to improve was the actual content experience, the actual act of reading the content on the page. We know that some developers love dark mode, others prefer light mode, and truly this is a personal choice, right? We wanted to give that choice to the user instead of forcing one way or another. We also know that with WorkOS, there are many products that you might not be extremely familiar with. So maybe with single sign-on, you are not familiar with terms like SAML or OpenID Connect. There are certain acronyms that make it a little bit harder to integrate for the first time. So we wanted to create a glossary with those terms so you can read it right away instead of like going somewhere else to absorb that information. So this is how it looks now at the new documentation. When you go to the top bar, you can find this option to toggle the theme from dark mode to light mode. And again, this is just a way for us to say that we respect your choices, we respect whatever you prefer, and that's available for you today. We mentioned the glossary, right? This is how it looks today. You go to the docs and you find all these different terms that are grouped by the first letter. So if you want to know what is an access token or ACS URL, we documented all these terms that you might not be familiar at first. If you are not experiencing the user authentication space and things like that. So this is all available right now, and you can learn more about these things right away. Okay, now let's talk about the navigation. This was also a very important thing and something that we wanted to improve so you can find the right information faster. So with the new navigation, we wanted to rethink the entire information architecture based not only on the content that we have today, but the content that we're planning to expand in the future as well. And all of these things that we implemented, new navigation, is built with Radix, the open source library that we maintain. So everything now is keyboard accessible, and that just makes it easier for you to play around and navigate through the docs. So let's see how that works. On the top left, we can find this new popover over there, and I can just use my tab, or I can use my arrow keys, and I can navigate to the different items in that. I can use my escape key, enter, and I can navigate to a specific page. So that just makes it so much easier to go from one feature to the other. What about images? Images is something that people might not think much about it when they are doing documentation. You know, the tendency that we all have is to think that documentation is all about written content. But with certain products, there's a lot of images that are involved, and WorkOS is one of them. So we had about 549 screenshots of different products that we integrate with, but they were all like not following a specific standard, maybe not in an ideal state. So we went and retook all of these screenshots with a much better approach to it, and you can experience it today. So if you go to any guide, in this case the dashboard guide, you can now zoom in and zoom out on specific images, and we now have specific callouts for the parts that we want you to see and pay attention to as you are integrating. So this is just a way for you to get to the right piece of the product faster, instead of trying to find exactly what we're trying to explain here. And if we're talking about a technical product, there's obviously code involved, and we're very thoughtful about the way we display code in these new docs. We added linkers for all these 586 code blocks that we have in the docs, and for all the languages that we support, not only one language or the other. And this linter, it runs on CI, so that means that whenever we keep evolving the docs and adding new content, you're not going to find typos or inconsistencies between like mixed quotes, like single quotes or double quotes, or syntax errors in whatever language you're using to integrate with WorkOS. To take a look into that, you can go to any of the guides. In this case, we're on the SSO guide, and you're going to notice right away that we have not only the Node.js, but specific frameworks that we're documenting, like Next.js and Express. You can toggle between the different languages, and we're now highlighting the specific lines that we want you to pay attention as well. In this case, we're showing that, hey, line 8 and line 12 are actually what you need to worry about in this specific context in the docs. What about the API reference? That's a huge part of the API as well, right? We wanted to document every single method and every single parameter in every API in a way that was uniformed across all the SDKs. So we did that, and we also added simple request and response objects. So you can take a look and see, okay, how can I integrate with this product right away? So if you go to the API reference page, you can now see this new tab that you can toggle between request and response. And you can also look at the method. In this case, this is a curl endpoint. So we show you all the parameters that we're exposing. What is the type, if that's a string, if that's a number, if that's an enum. And if you're in different languages, we make it so that it feels natural to that language. So we might change a couple things, like with Go, for example, we show you all the options in an object. With Java, we show you this builder parameter and how you can specify that. So that's just a completely revamp in our API reference, and that's probably the place that we most spend time on, making sure that every little detail was really optimal to your navigation and your experience of consuming that content. Another piece that we spent a lot of time on was on the search. So with search, we wanted to make sure that all of these things that we're documenting in the API reference was exposed to you as you were trying to find something. So we tried to imagine the developer who's integrating, and now they have like a specific parameter that they want to look for, but they struggled to do that in the previous API reference and the previous docs because we simply didn't have that documented or didn't index that information. So now all of this is available, and we also make sure that that search that you're doing is based on the context that you're looking for. So if you are a Node.js user or a Java user or PHP, Python, Ruby, it doesn't really matter. We're going to scope based on that particular language. So let's see that in practice. Today, you go to this search box on the top, and you can find for specific method. This is the authorization URL, and when you just press enter, you go straight to it. So extremely easy, extremely fast to get to it. Another piece, and that's related to the context-aware search, is that if I'm searching within curl, I only show results for curl. But if I happen to now use one of the different client libraries, let's say in this case Python, and I search, now all the results are going to be based only within Python. So that's really cool. That's really nice because, at the end of the day, if you're implementing and integrating with one specific platform, you don't necessarily want to see results for other platforms. Nice. And last but not least, we also wanted to improve the way images and links were shared for your coworkers or other people who are consuming the WorkOS docs. So to improve the sharing experience, we looked into changing the URL as you're scrolling through each page. And that just makes it easier for you to share with someone and they get to the specific place that you wanted to them to see. And we're also generating dynamic images on the fly. So when you share a specific page, we show a more compelling preview of that page. So let's see how that looks in practice. This is the template that we created using this tool called Microlink. And when you share that link, any of the links from our docs on Slack or Twitter or LinkedIn, we show you like a preview that is dynamically generated based on the metadata of the page. So that's the new docs. This was a huge revamp, and this was a project that ultimately serves WorkOS users so that they can get to the information faster. You can check it out at workos.com/docs. And as I said, this is a whole project based on how we can make it easier for you to navigate and find the content that you're looking for, and also that you can have a smoother integration with any of these APIs that we offer. So it doesn't matter if you are integrating with MFA, single sign-on, Audit Logs, directory sync. We wanted you to have a great experience across the board. So put a lot of effort into this. We hope you like it. And that was it for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and let us know if you have any questions.